be attached to them. Just draw the awareness inward. Draw it to your breath. And don't try to change the breath, but just allow it to be a powerful, massive anchor for your awareness, like a magnet for your awareness that's just pulling your awareness to it. Feel that awareness just become one with your breath. And just allow the breath to flow at its natural pace. As you inhale and exhale, but the awareness is fully merged into it. Not judging and commenting, but just merging into it, like a drop merges into the ocean. If you find yourself being distracted by the movement of the mind that we call thoughts, just see them as little bubbles, like children blow bubbles. And just allow each individual thought to just pop and be gone. And you may notice that another has arisen, and that's okay. Just let it pop and be gone. And in between the arrival of each bubble, just draw that awareness back to the breath as that sacred prana flows in, filling us, nourishing us and nurturing us. And as it flows out, as we let go back into the universe, you can add a very gentle and simple mantra to it if you find that your mind is being distracted. And the mantra is so hum. On the inhalations, just allow yourself to silently to just silently chant to yourself as you inhale. So And as you exhale, allow yourself to just gently, silently chant hum. It means I am that. I am one with all. I am the creator. I am the creation. I am it all. There's no place I end and the universe begins. I am that. Just allow yourself to chant it silently to yourself. So hum. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together with everyone. Starting as usual with a question that's come in advance, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. How can we figure out what issues or traits or behaviors we need to work on? The ego does a pretty good job of hiding them from us. So how do we figure out what issues, traits, or behaviors we need to work on? Usually, a practice of introspection, deep introspection, will show that to us, if we're really honest. But if you find that even in a deep introspective process, the ego is still able to play its games, then a good way to notice is what things bother you as you move through the world. What things trigger you? And it may be very subtle. The more spiritual work we do, thankfully, the less triggered we get. But it's still there. What is it that triggers you? What is it that suddenly makes you feel angry, frustrated, jealous, resentful, guilty, shameful? What situations with other people are the most difficult for you? And normally for most of us, if we're asked that question, we'll give examples of situations with people who are difficult. Well, obviously it's difficult because that person is obnoxious. Or it's difficult because that person is ignorant. That person is living in judgment, and so being with them is difficult. But if we're really honest, Sandeepaya Vinod ko bulalana. If we're really honest, we notice that maybe it's not only the other person. Just for a moment, think, what would it be? What would it be if it weren't that person's fault? If it weren't because that person was obnoxious? Why else might I find difficulty with that person? And these are all very good indicators that there's something within you. Sandeep, wo thoda sa iska. Vinod ko bulala hai na usko aate hain. Theek. Thanks. That's a really good indication that there's something in you that is amiss. Because if you look at beings, enlightened beings, beings like the Buddha, well, in all of the stories, not only the teachings, but all of the stories that I've ever read, I've never heard once of the Buddha saying, "My God, that guy is really annoying. Could somebody please remove this obnoxious person? Could someone please make this situation easier for me to handle? Could someone just please free me from the clutches of this one or that one?" I've never heard of it. I've never heard of any enlightened master, mystic, yogi of any tradition need to rearrange the world around them in order for them to feel the presence of God, to feel peaceful, to feel joy, to feel bliss. And so if you find that there's anything in your life that is keeping you from feeling totally one with God, whatever that may mean to you in your spiritual tradition, if there's anything in your life that's keeping you from living in absolute peace in this moment, that would be a great place to start in looking at what your issues might be. You know, in psychology, we speak about projection. That I project onto you that which is in me. And so if I see someone who's really self-centered, or who's really judgmental, or who's really jealous, or who's really greedy in you, chances are that's something that I'm subconsciously or unconsciously working with in my own self, or need to work with in my own self. So look at it that way. If your introspection doesn't show you where the issues are, figure out where is it in life that you feel triggered. And then start there. And you'll get a lot of wisdom if you are really honest. And if you just for a moment assume that the problem is not the other person. If you just take it as a rule, the problem is never the other person. I'm not saying there aren't people who are obnoxious or are greedy or are annoying. But if it's something that's deeply upsetting me, that problem is within me. So start there. And you'll be able to ride the path of your own uncomfortableness to deeper truth and to deeper awareness. Other questions? Any question that anyone here might have? Yeah.
Thank you, Sadhviji. This week, another edition of the beautiful yoga festival ended. And as we are going back abroad to other countries, I would like you, if you can share your vision about this question. I think that times are changing, but that still for most people, yoga is primarily an asana practice. And what is your view on showing to people that yoga is more than that, and that's also important to investigate into that part of yoga?
Sure, beautiful. How do we share in the world the teaching and the fact that yoga is more than asanas? That yoga is a full way of living. You live it. That's how you share it. You live it. You know, we all want deep happiness. We all want deep peace. Everybody's looking for it. Everybody's looking for deep meaning in their life, purpose, fulfillment. We're all looking for that. If you embody that, you are going to be a magnet who people will come to and wonder, what are you doing? And how can I have some of it? Where do I get some of that? So you live it. You live yam and niyam. So when people are gossiping or people are stealing or hoarding or telling untruths or behaving in ways that are not in alignment with yam and niyam, or what in the West we call the yamas and niyamas. And they ask you why. You don't give them a lecture. It's not, I'm better than you. It's not from a place of being high and mighty and, yeah, I've come back and now you all have to sit at my feet and listen to me. Because all that does is drive people away. There's always a temptation. You found something, you learned something, you want to share it. But a lot of times, the more emphatically we try to share it, the more arrogant we come off as, the more of a know-it-all. And most people don't want to be told that they're living their lives in an incorrect way. They don't want to be told how to live. And so we end up actually achieving the opposite of our goal. When we go back and start with, oh, you'll never believe, here's what you need to do, here's how you need to change, here's how you need to live, listen to me, I'll tell you. It doesn't usually work. Instead, just live it. But when people ask you, why are you not doing this, or why are you doing that, or why have you changed this? Tell them. Because according to Yam and Niyam, which I practice, not which all the good people in the world practice, not which you need to practice, but just which I practice, which I've dedicated myself to practicing. This is what it says. And I have found that actually by practicing this, I feel and fill in the blanks. I feel more peaceful. I feel more in alignment. I feel more connected to purpose, to Dharma. Whatever your truth is, but share it. When they ask. And then of course you live the other limbs, the higher limbs of these 8 limbs of yoga, Ashtanga yoga. You live them as well. You practice meditation. And you practice it so that you will experience samadhi. So, why are you meditating? A lot of people sadly think that meditation is that which we do just so that we can concentrate better at work or in school. And yeah, that happens and it's great. But I've had a lot of people, come and say, I want to learn to meditate so that I can concentrate more at work or so I can do better in school. I think, wonderful, no problem. But recognize that ultimately meditation gives us a lot more than better concentration. It gives us a lot more than a cognitive edge in work, in school. It's actually that which shows us the very truth of who we are. It's that which merges into, becomes samadhi. That bliss, that ecstasy, that oneness. So when they ask, share it with them. But just be a magnet. Just be a magnet. You don't have to teach them. Just live it. And slowly, 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 people will be drawn by that magnet. And you'll be able to share. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Namaskar. Sometimes we are stuck in some situations and we are not able to go out of it. So how
Just
can...
1 second, I'm so sorry. Can you hear in the far back? Can people in the back hear? Great.
So we are stuck to some situations or some events or any thoughts. I can say thoughts. So how can we get out of it or positively, not negatively?
Yeah, we all get stuck in thoughts and thought patterns. The way to break it is the way that we break any habit. Because the reason that we get stuck in these patterns is it literally just becomes a habit. Like, this is how I think. This is how I am. And the thought itself, or the pattern of thought, takes hold, quite literally, of the neurons of our brain and changes the way they function. We think that thoughts are somehow this thing and they're, coming into me. They're being produced by my brain cells. That's why when we talk about them as bubbles, that's really what they are. Each individual thought is just a bubble. But what happens is my brain gets in the habit of thinking in a certain way, of having the neurons work in a certain way, in a pattern. What you could call a sanskara. Right? It's an impression. It's a way of moving. In neurology, they say neurons that fire together, wire together. So for example, let's say I'm angry and I throw a temper tantrum. And in that temper tantrum, I've got this huge rush of endorphins. And in that rush of endorphins, the pain that I was feeling is sort of numbed. Because as I'm throwing a temper tantrum, I'm hyperventilating and I'm literally causing a rush of these hormones in the body that block pain. And so, wow, I feel so much better after my temper tantrum. Now what happens? Next time I'm angry, I'm much more likely to throw a temper tantrum. Not because I have cognitively said, oh, that felt better, but because I've created a neural network, a pattern that says anger, temper tantrum. In the West, sadly, in the teachings of psychology, we speak a lot about just get it out. As though somehow emotions were things like something bad you'd eaten, some bad food that once you vomit, you're just going to feel better. But our emotions are not actually like that. You actually can't vomit them up. You can't have them surgically removed. There isn't a way to just get it out. And the more we get it out like that, all that happens is we become more likely to throw temper tantrums. We're more likely to do it rather than less likely. Because it has wired together in my brain anger, temper tantrum, relief. Now that is how I act. Thought patterns happen very similarly. A thought takes hold in my mind. Life isn't fair. My life especially is not fair. Everybody gets things that are better than I do. People take advantage of me. I always get the short end of the stick. I do good things and bad things happen to me. Life isn't fair. We'll just call that my thought pattern that is now stuck in my mind. Well, the more I think that, the stronger the groove in my mind becomes that this is how I think. Now, everything that happens, I trip and I fall and I say, oh, see, I told you, life isn't fair. The guy next to me didn't trip on the rock. I tripped on the rock because life is out to get me. In some way, the universe is out to get me. I'm the one who always gets stuck doing this, doing that. I get no love, I get no appreciation, I get no reward, I get nothing. This is, every time I think that, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the problem is that when I say I'm not going to think that, I still make it deeper. I'm no longer going to think that life isn't fair. Not going to think that life isn't fair. Yes, I just tripped, but I won't think that life isn't fair. So, life isn't fair is still that which is flowing through my mind and my thoughts. The only way to break that habit is to give yourself a different way of thinking. Just a different way. if you take, well, let's take this piece of paper. Make it a little thicker. Now imagine that this is somewhat thicker, that it's maybe a piece of stone or a piece of wood or whatever it is. If I took my fingernail or a key or a coin and I went like this over and over and over again in one place, it would make a groove. If I then took water and I poured it over, most of the water would go into that groove. And the more water that flowed in that groove, the deeper the groove would get. And the deeper the groove got, the more likely it was that when I pour water, it's going to go in the groove. This is how river valleys are created. And it's how our thought patterns, our sanskaras, are created. Over and over and over again, an impression in our mind, in our neural networks. Every time I think life isn't fair, it's this. It's this. Then I trip and fall, means life happens. It's like the water. Whatever happens when that water falls, it's going to go in the groove. So whatever it is that happens in my life, it's going to come now into this groove. So what do? I start creating a new groove over here. I can't yell at this groove and expect it to somehow fill itself back up. You can't yell at your neurons and somehow expect them to stop firing in that way. But you create a new groove over here. Deeper and deeper. Deeper. I am blessed. The universe is my friend. The universe loves me. Over and over and over. Everything is happening for my benefit. Over and over. And now when you pour water, half of it goes here, half of it goes there. But as I keep working this groove, and it gets deeper than this one, now more of the water comes here. Now when life happens, it flows here. And because the brain is constantly changing, very much like a natural river valley, not at all like a piece of paper or a rock, this groove will actually fill in. If a river stops flowing in a river valley, over time, grass is going to grow, vegetation will come, trees will grow. Slowly, slowly, the valley will fill itself in. So that's what you do. You just choose a different thought. A mantra is also very, very powerful to break the cycle. If instead of thinking life isn't fair, I start chanting my mantra, it's a very powerful, immediate way of shifting my mind. So even before you try to give a different thought, you may just decide to just free yourself from that pattern altogether, that you don't need a different thought necessarily. And you can instead just use your mantra. Whenever the thought arises, just chant the mantra. And slowly, 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 that pattern will let go and stop. Other questions?
गुरु माँ प्रणाम जी। मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि मैं जब भी ध्यान करने के लिए बैठती हूँ, वैसे बैठती तो नहीं हूँ, स्वतः ही कभी हो जाता है, तो मुझे बहुत डर लगता है। बहुत ज़्यादा डर लगता है, घबराहट होती है। पहले तो बहुत रोती हूँ, इतना रोती हूँ फिर उसके बाद घबराहट शुरू हो जाती है बहुत, डॉक्टर्स को भी दिखाया, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, घबराहट होती है। उसके बाद मुझे डेथ ही डेथ नजर आती है, डेथ ही डेथ, ऑलवेज डेथ। चिताएं जल रही हैं वो, उसके बाद मैं बहुत डर जाती हूँ, मैं अकेली भी नहीं बैठ सकती।
Beautiful. So it's a question about meditation. She said, whenever I meditate, I get afraid. As I'm meditating, I start having these experiences and just seeing death, images of death, feelings of death. And I get so afraid that I panic. And I come out of my meditation. She said, I can't sit and meditate alone because I'm so afraid. Meditation is in many ways a death. It is a death of the ego. And that's the ego. All of this fear is the ego saying, don't meditate. Don't meditate, because as we meditate, we become freer and freer of the ego. We start seeing the truth of who we are. And so the ego panics. And it'll do whatever it needs to do to get you out of meditation. For some people, it just reminds us of all of the things we have to do. Oh my God, I forgot to do this. Oh my God, I forgot to do that. Oh my God, what if the coffee pot is still on? The house is going to burn down. Oh my God. And for other people, it actually shows things that we are afraid of, that make us want to come out of our meditation. But when you have those experiences, realize, yes, there is a death. Death is happening. Not of my body moment, not from meditating, but death of the ego is happening. And so let it happen. It's nothing to be afraid of. Nobody ever died from meditating. Meditation is not going to make you die.